For the Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network, this is Jake Leonard with your Midday Newsbreak for Monday, April 23rd. Second Amendment advocates will take to the state capitol Wednesday to lobby against proposed legislation to limit gun owner rights. The Illinois Gun Owner Lobby Day, also known as iGold, is an annual event held and actively promoted by the Illinois State Rifle Association. Participants will be meeting at the Bank of America Center, with doors opening at 10:30 a.m. with the speaker program beginning at 11:45. A march to the Capitol building will take place at some point in the program. The annual event has taken place since the early 90s to put a face on gun owners compared to how the media portrays them. Meanwhile, members of the Libertarian Party of Illinois will take to Springfield Wednesday to collect signatures for their statewide slate of candidates. Gubernatorial candidate Cash Jackson will be present alongside many members to collect petition signatures. Currently, the slate roughly has 10,000 signatures collected. Average gas prices rose 2.5 cents last week to an average of $2.73 per gallon, according to a daily survey of nearly 4,400 gas stations in the state performed by GasBuddy. This average is 23.5 cents higher compared to this time last year and 13 cents higher month to date. This has been our segment for your midday news break. For more on these stories, you can log in anytime at heartlandnewsfeed.com. The Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network. I'm Jake Leonard. Your midday news break continues with top stories from the RFD Radio Network and FPP Radio News.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLawes Yankee. Corn futures managed to stay a penny higher today, while nearby soybean contracts have made their way a dime lower. They've been losing ground as the day has gone on so far. May corn up 1 1/4, 3.77 3/4. 3-cent trading range so far today, pretty quiet. July up 1, 3.86 1/2. December up 1 1/4, $4, 3 3/4. May soybeans down 10 1/4, 10.18 1/2. That is about 15 off the high, and it's a penny and a quarter off the low. July down a dime, 10.30 1/4. November down 8 1/4 at 10.26 3/4. May wheat's up a fraction, 4.63 1/2. May hogs down 92.69 2 cents. June cattle, though, up 127 at an even $105 a hundredweight. This is the RFD Radio Network.
This is the RFD Livestock Report. I'm Rita Frazier. Today we're joined by Lauren Lurkins, Director of Natural and Environmental Resources here at Illinois Farm Bureau. We're talking, Lauren, during Earth Week.
For Earth Week, we celebrate a lot of things, right? So I'm your Director of Environmental Resources. So, of course, I'm going to find something to talk about. But I do have the great privilege of seeing what happens in our state. On the livestock side, we do hear from few very vocal opponents, I think. And I really do think that there are just a few of them, because when we look at the track record of our industry, it's not anecdotal stories of, trust me, I'm doing the right thing. You know, it's actually proven. You know, from an environmental standpoint, we have been regulated by Illinois EPA since the 80s in some fashion. Now, those rules have become more stringent. Most recently in 2014, after we had a rulemaking to match the federal rules, the CAFO rules, as we call them. But really, we've been regulated for 30 years. On the Department of Ag side, as far as sightings and the constructions of new facilities, since the mid-90s. So it's more than anecdotal stories. It's about doing the right thing day to day on the farm, and then we also have data out of our state agencies that helps us tell that story. So I think that's a really important thing to think about.
And really starting with efforts last summer, you were able to start bringing those numbers to the public, to the media, and share those across the state.
Right. So one of the things that we have been working on with our peers in our livestock groups here in the state is trying to educate farmers in a different manner about these environmental rules. So since 2014, we do have the updated rules from Illinois EPA, and they're not easy to read, Rita. They are impossible. So what we did was we tried to spend some time creating resource guides that are about 75 short pages. But it's actually cool and easy to read with pictures and normal, common sense, everyday examples. And so we have a version for swine, a version for beef, and a version for dairy. And we've actually passed out in just over 1 year's time over 6,000 of those to different livestock producers. And They are just available in hard copy, and that is on purpose. So that is just, driving around with those things in my trunk, as well as my peers and all these livestock groups, just getting them in the hands of farmers.
And working with a gentleman like Tim Myers, who was with the pork producers, of course, now with his private consulting business, also reaching out to those farmers and really working on telling the story as well.
Right. We should not forget Tim. He is a critical piece of this, working on this issue every day when he's not, raising his own livestock on his farm. He is helping us with this effort. He was the one to help me draft those resource guides. So I put my legal brain together with his livestock producer communicator brain, and somehow we have a fantastic work product that we're just happy to share. I will note that it was not just Tim and I who drafted these. We actually spent a significant amount of time with Illinois EPA. It does us no good to talk about their rules if they disagree with everything on, 70 of the 75 pages. So we did make sure that they were comfortable with the words on the page.
What else will you take as far as this is a kind of a kickoff, really, of efforts that you're going to take here through the spring and summer, telling livestock's story?
Right. So I think that the things that we are very good at talking about is the economic value that we bring to the state. So I think we have probably some people who haven't heard that message, and maybe it's time to talk a little bit louder. I have this quote, without data, you're just another person with an opinion, right? So sometimes you have to show your data. We've seen that in our trade issues where you start to see the impact, right? But I think that's important to keep telling that story. And I think we can talk about how we're, from an environmental perspective, sustainable, and we do have agency data to show how we're doing the right thing out in the countryside.
Illinois Farm Bureau's Lauren Lurkins here on the RFD Livestock Report.
Let's check the weather with freeze notice. Meteorologist Stan Hicks says, we could do a lot worse than mild, as we've seen so far this spring.
Certainly that's true. We've had generally a milder temperature trend over the central and northern Midwest, areas that had been quite cool earlier in April. Definitely saw some milder conditions, a lot of 50s and 60s, even extending clear up into the northern part of the central U.S., all the way to the Canadian border. The southern part of Illinois picking up some rain from this southern system. These heavier rains got a little bit farther north than I expected. Late last week, there were some 1 to 2 inch amounts in the far southern part of the state. As you move farther north, a little bit less. Looking at the radar currently, these rains are breaking up somewhat. There will be some light rain or drizzle in the southern third, roughly, of the state into this evening, but additional amounts on the light side. Farther north, it stayed dry, and really not a lot of major precipitation in the forecast heading into the mid part of next week. We've got a couple of minor systems coming in from the northwest later this week, but really nothing heavy as far as additional precip, and nothing unusually cool as far as...
Try to get through this week and hopefully more field work, just hopefully some spotty rains for the rest of the way this week.
That's the way it looks. We're kind of waiting for soil temperatures to warm up, especially in the central and northern areas due to the cool weather. And, of course, some of those far southern areas may need a day or two to dry out. But it still looks like the overall trend is more favorable over a larger part of the Midwest for some field work, and the soil temperatures in the central and north gradually warming up to a point where a little bit more corn planting will be allowed. And really looking ahead into the 6 to 10, 11 to 15-day time frames, really no extremes expected temperature-wise in most areas.
Dan Hicks, freeze notice.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Monday, April 23rd, 2018. Silver is trading at $16.83 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,325 per ounce. Zen Cash is trading at $34, and the average price of Bitcoin is $8,963. Antiwar.com reports the Islamic State bombers attacked 2 voter registration centers in Afghanistan on Sunday. The first and biggest attack hit Kabul, while a smaller secondary attack struck outside a center in Pul-e-Kumri in Baghlan province. At least 63 were killed and over 100 wounded. The Kabul attack left at least 57 people killed by itself. Identities are not available, but the site attacked was in the Shiite-dominated part of the capital. The Islamic State referred to the attacks as targeting apostates, suggesting they were trying to kill Shiites Shiites. This is common for them as the Islamic State often goes after religious minorities. The second smaller attack in Baghlan province did not actually hit the voter registration center itself. Instead, it was a roadside bomb which hit a vehicle outside of the center. A family of 6 was killed, and the Islamic State also claimed credit for this. Afghan parliamentary elections are currently scheduled for October 20th. The vote was supposed to take place in 2016, but was postponed over political reform questions. The reforms are still heavily debated, as they often are in corruption-rife Afghanistan. Selling the public on the merits of registering to vote is going to be difficult if groups like the Islamic State start making those registration centers a target.
For over 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals. They don't feed the banks, they're Bitcoin preferred, and have removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co.
UPI reports Apple is offering free battery replacement on certain MacBook Pro laptop models following an issue that caused the batteries to expand. The replacement program extends to 13-inch MacBook Pro non-touch bar units manufactured between October 2016 and October 2017 that feature a component that may fail and cause the built-in battery to expand. Apple said the battery issue is not a safety concern, and battery replacements will be offered free of charge at Apple service centers, retail stores, or by mailing the device into the Apple Repair Center. On the website announcing the replacement program, there's a field for MacBook owners to enter their computer serial number to determine if it is eligible for free replacement. Any customer who paid to replace their battery before the program was announced can also contact Apple to request a refund. The program is available to customers worldwide and covers the affected units for 5 years after the first retail sale, but does not extend the MacBook Pro's standard warranty coverage.
Are you looking for a cryptocurrency that has a focus on users and usability? Then look into Zencash. Zencash is the world's first private, distributed, and reliable platform for communications, transactions, and publishing. Zencash features global governance with inclusive decision-making, reliable funding for continuous improvements, and documentation and wallets in many languages that are available for Linux, Mac, Windows, and Android devices. Learn more at zensystem.io. That's zensystem.io.
Reuters reports Congress needs to consider rolling back the spending bill that U.S. Republicans brokered with Democrats last month because lawmakers voted to enact the $1.3 trillion legislation without reading it, according to an aide to President Donald Trump on Sunday. White House Legislative Director Mark Short said the spending bill, which ran more than 2,000 pages, was rushed into place to avoid a government shutdown. He urged Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell to consider new rescission legislation with spending cuts sought by fiscal conservatives in the U.S. House. Short told NBC's Meet the Press, nobody saw the text of the bill within 24 hours because the process in Congress is broken, adding, we would ask the Senate to have patience and look at the packages that get sent to them. Some Republicans want a rescissions bill that would cut up to $60 billion in non-military spending, funds that were crucial to winning Democratic support. But reopening the bipartisan deal could divide Republicans during a midterm election year in which they are vulnerable to a Democratic surge. The party is already struggling against unexpected turbulence over House Speaker Paul Ryan's decision to retire. A rescission vote could also raise the prospect of another embarrassing Republican failure in the 100-seat Senate, which the party currently controls by a 51-49 margin. Republican Senator Susan Collins said on Sunday that she would not support a bill that unwinds the bipartisan deal. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, whom Ryan has endorsed as his replacement, wants to use a rescissions bill to implement big spending cuts. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.